Today we're going to replace the shifter bushings on a Ford Aspire. It's going to be the exact same process for a Ford Festiva. The shift slop is pretty bad in this thing, so we're going to replace the bushings and a little bit of hardware. Let me show you what we're going to do. So we have the stabilizer bar bushing here, and then we've got 6 of the actual shift bushings right there. Then we've got some extra hardware. I don't think we need the hardware. This car is rust free. It's been in Texas its whole life. But I'll put a link in the description on where you can get all this stuff. I paid for it, not sponsored by the place that makes it or anything like that. But we're going to take a look downstairs. I know how to replace most of the bushings, but one set is going to be a little bit more difficult. Going to have to get creative on that. All right, so first bushings we can see are right here directly underneath the shifter above the exhaust. Shouldn't have to remove the exhaust to get to anything. But the 2 little green bushings will go inside there. And if we follow this down, we've got our stabilizer there on the right, and then more shift linkage here. So this one in the very front here, as you can see, it doesn't have a bolt head on it, so I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do about that. May have to grind those off on the workbench and replace that with a bolt. But the one underneath here that goes side to side right off that bellows, 2 little bushings go in there as well. The big blue one goes on that stabilizer bar. So I'm going to work on getting all this disassembled, and we'll take it over to the workbench. Okay, all of the hardware is going to be 12 millimeter except for the stabilizer hardware up here, which is going to be a 14. And let me just show you here how sloppy some of this stuff is. It is pretty bad. So you multiply that by 6 from all those bushings being bad there. First off, we're going to start with the stabilizer. I'm going to see if I can get this bushing in place without removing the entire bar, because then I'll have to pull a little bit of interior out. You're going to loosen this nut right here, which I told you is a 14. And then after that, we should be able to take the stud out. Okay, so here's the nut. And okay, there we go. So I'm just pulling down on this bar to relieve the tension, and then I can spin this by hand. So we'll try to get this thing out here. There we go. This has the sleeve on it. So we'll set that aside. And it looks like we've got a washer that went right there that just fell down. So make sure we keep track of all that. Looks like we've got 2 washers, the nut, the stud, and the sleeve. And I want to see if I can press that bushing in place without removing the whole thing. I'm not going to video the rest of this. It's a really tight area, but I'm going to go ahead and pull all this linkage apart here, which is just this bolt, the long bolt, and then there's a short bolt under the exhaust over there. So I'm going to pull these apart. We'll take them over to the workbench. We've got the shift bar removed. We're going to do the hard part first, which is replacing the bushings down inside here. This looks like it was a spin weld or friction weld, whatever you want to call it. They just pretty much stuck a piece of hardware in from the bottom and melted this thing in place. So we're going to have to grind this off right here, and then we can hopefully hammer that pin out, and we're going to replace that with a bolt. So this is the long one, and then we're going to stick those 2 bushings in right there. I think I've got the material off that we need. I'm going to see if this pin will just come out. Yeah, there we go. So, came out pretty nice. Take a look at this thing so you can see what it actually looks like. So you can see it's got a little shoulder to it. We'll install the new one in just the same way, but we'll go ahead and install these before we do that. This thing has a ton of grease and transmission fluid or something in there, so I'm going to clean that out first. Okay, so first one in, just pushed it in. Bottom one, there we go. We can install it all back together. Stick our hardware in place. Oh, sorry, wrong way. need to put this up from the bottom because the hole in the bottom is bigger. There we go. All right, tighten this up and then we'll be ready to go underneath the car, install the rest of those small bushings, and see if we can press that big one in. Okay, underneath the car, starting in the rear first, just gonna push these little bushings into place, and that's pretty much it. Already cleaned that socket out, so now that one's ready to go. Move up to the front. Same thing for the ones in the front. Just gonna push them in to that little thing right there on both sides. And there we go. Last thing we've got to do is that stabilizer bushing, which is right here. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to get this in. I think I'm going to try it by hand first. Just going to see if I can push it on down through there. I may be able to. I might lube up this outside to see if it'll go on. Well, that was pretty easy. That thing went right on. I just kind of collapsed it a little bit and pushed it right through. So good on the manufacturer. Thing went right in. Now we just have to put everything in the reverse order. We'll put our stud in there, put the sleeve to the middle of the bushing. Make sure you don't forget the washer that goes there first, and then the washer that goes on this side up here. And then all we've got to do is just put that shift linkage back in. Okay, got that bushing in, washers and everything on. Just showing you a different angle here, how everything looks. We'll move on to installing the shift bar. The hardest part's already done. All you gotta do is put this bar back in place. And I want to show you how it goes because there is a little bit of a difference on this bar. So as you can tell, the bar has kind of a kick out to it, and you want it to be oriented just like this. So that is going to be the rear of the car, and this is going to be the front over here. So just in case you get this thing taken apart and you get it mixed up, that's how it's supposed to go back in. Okay, I've got the bar down here. I'm just going to feed it in right beside the catalytic converter here. Kind of wiggle it up to the front. And all you're going to do is just line up the cups here on the front and the back. It's going to take a little bit of finagling, and you'll probably need two hands, so I'm going to have to put the camera back down. But anyway, just line these up here and you can get your hardware in. Okay, I've got all my hardware in, front and back. And that's all there is to this job. I know the camera angles were a little weird and the lighting probably wasn't the best, but I hope that gave you a good idea on what you're going to have to do to replace this stuff. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Thanks for watching.